Hola, flamingos. This is Andrew Mark Rowe, and you are currently breathing in holy flamingo poop. Today on the show, we have Nicole Little, fellow Atlantic Canadian author of genre fiction. Hello, Nicole.
Oh.
Um, also, I'm pulling this from your Facebook page.
Oh,
Award,
okay.
yeah, award-winning short story writer who lives in St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. A fellow townie. Yeah. For anyone who's listening who doesn't know, in Newfoundland, townies are the people who live in St. John's, the capital city. And if you go past the overpass, you're in the bay, and you have baymen and bay women and bay people.
I'm from the
Um, yeah. You are originally from the bay? Okay, whereabouts?
I'm from the Bonavista Vista area. Technically I'm from Catalina, but nobody ever knows where that is, so I always say Bonavista. Vista.
That's funny. Lady I worked with for 7 years. She was from Catalina as
Oh,
well.
really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Paula Dalton.
Oh, I know her. I went to high school with her.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Small province.
Definitely.
um, so I've been looking forward to having a chat with you about your writing journey for some time now.
Yay.
And okay, so you're from Catalina. Uh, did you get your start writing in Catalina?
Actually, probably before that. Like, I've been writing for as long as I can remember, like just scribbling on paper and saying, I wrote a book, and it's just like literal just scribbles on paper stapled together. Um, I can
I think my
remember
daughter's
sitting,
into
yeah,
that.
like I remember sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table, just like writing. And then, like, my grandfather would give me like $1 for my book. So, I mean, not a
Oh,
bad deal.
yeah, that's pretty good.
But yeah, so I used to write like I was a weird kid. So I used to write like parodies of songs with my own words to it. So I've just always been writing something.
Nice. Weird Al
Mhm.
style.
Yeah,
Mm.
just like that.
Okay. And so I suppose when did you really get more, I mean, when did you get more serious than the scribbles?
Probably it was probably the middle part of 2017 is when I started writing with the idea that I would submit, like seriously submit to some local publishers and things like that. And the first thing that I submitted was rejected. That's okay. um,
Yeah, that
it just made
happens.
me realize that like it wasn't necessarily it wasn't a setback for me. I was like I put myself out there and I was happy about that. And then the second thing that I submitted was for the Kitsora competition that Engine has monthly, and
Okay.
it was actually accepted for that. I don't know if you can see that little painting or the picture that's there on the wall.
Yeah, I can see
My
it.
story was actually accompanied that picture that Kit Sora took, and that was a gift that I got from my family.
Oh,
I guess to
nice.
sort of remember it.
Okay. So could you explain the Kitsora thing for people who don't know?
Sure. It's a competition that Engine Books has monthly. And it's a 250 word short story that is written about a photo that Kitsora has taken. They're usually very fantastical, very beautiful. She does great work. And so you just take the picture, and then that's your prompt, and you write a 250 word story and just submit it. And one is picked monthly to be the winner.
Cool. Well, that's really
It was
cool.
pretty
That's an
fun.
awesome
Yeah.
little heirloom or thing that you got
Yeah,
there.
I
Yeah.
love it. It's super
Yeah.
cute. I keep
Yeah.
it on my office wall.
Yeah, that's great. So I don't think I've read your Kitsora story, but I have read two of your stories. I read The Lotus Fountain, which is part of the Slipstreamers
Yeah.
YA series that's also published by Engine Books, which is a local to us genre fiction
Yeah.
publisher. And I've also read your latest, Roxy Buckles and the Flight of the Sparrow. You've definitely got the kick arse heroin shtick down pat.
Yay! That's what I was going for.
So can we I want to talk a little bit about those books. Okay, so
Sure.
you got Kitsora. It was so I know you've published more short stories and more of Engine's anthologies. Which anthologies are you published in?
So with Engine, I'm in Dystopia from the Rock, Flights from the Rock, um, from the Rock Stars, and I think that's it. I do have a few. I think there's about, I want to say 25 now, anthologies that I have some form of a short story in. Um, there's even one that's for children, mostly for adults, but there's one that, for little kids, like my smallest kid could read it. But they're mostly, like horror, you know science fiction, that sort of vein.
Okay. So all I've read for viewers is sci-fi. You've got some horror out there. Did you publish anything outside of Engine with like different publishers besides Engine?
Yes, I've actually got I had a horror novella that came out just a few months ago called Invited, and that's with Black Hair Press, which is a small press out of Melbourne, Australia. So that was a horror one that just recently came out.
Okay. Horror is one of my favorite genres. I gotta check that out.
Mhm.
Invited, eh? Did you? Is there any kind of like I don't without getting into any spoilers? Like, is it supernatural? Is it you want to kind of give like some?
It's ghost haunted house kind of thing. But I will tell you, it does get a little bit gory. Not overly so. Like it's not too much. It's a little bit. It's a little bit gory.
Yeah. Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing, okay, so you got all those short stories and the Invited's a novella, and Lotus Fountain and Roxy's is Roxy a novella? Or it seems like it's a little bit longer than a novella. I don't even know what you'd call it.
Yeah, it's
Novelette.
probably like going into novel sort of range, I think.
Yeah. So are those those are the longest works you've written, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that
And
was a bit of a I guess I kind of got my start with short stories, so writing the longer stuff was really hard for me because writing the short stories you kind of have to hold back a bit, right? And I like edit myself like so hard, taking out like full sentences and full paragraphs and stuff, but when you're writing longer bits you get to keep it. It's just kind of
yeah,
hard because I'm so used to, like, cutting the chafe kind of thing, and now I've got to keep it.
yeah. Well, that's it's a it's almost like a well, I think it was Hemingway who really shifted literature, at least in Western literature, towards that more sparse and like,
Yeah.
heavily, axed up, chopped down stuff. But I mean, like, if you look at it like the gothic horror, I mean, Lovecraft is very gothic. Like he
Yes.
was hugely like influenced, and his stuff is as dense as he didn't kill many darlings. I'll put it that way. I always enjoyed I like writing short fiction and longer fiction as well, but that's definitely one of the nice things about the longer stuff is you can kind of
Yeah,
like let yourself go a little bit.
exactly.
Yeah. So in terms of your influences, I mean, like I said, I've only read your sci-fi, but you seems like got the horror thing too. Who are your favorite authors?
It seems kind of cliched to say Stephen King, but
Oh,
Stephen King.
yeah.
I was reading Stephen King way before I should have.
Yeah, yeah,
um, my small, like, I'm small town. We had a very tiny library. I spent a lot of time there. My librarian knew that I liked to read. She knew that I read like above my like grade or age level or whatever. So I was pretty much allowed to take out whatever I wanted. So I was, yeah, like Stephen King. I read a lot of Dean Koontz. Just anything sort of in the John Saul. just anything in the,
Okay.
horror like if I could find it, I read it. I'm still the same way now. I really love horror is my favorite to read. I like psychological thrillers too, like those ones that are like New York Times bestsellers and everybody talks about. I like those.
Yeah.
But my horror will always be my favorite. Like as soon as Stephen King's got a new book out, I'm like mine.
Nice. I remember there was when I think it was in university, um, at this time, but it was like early. I was working at a homebrew shop, and it was like right next to a used bookstore,
Oh,
and there was like a lot of like downtime where there wasn't really much that had to be done. So I was in the back room reading all these like used paperbacks of Stephen King. He was like
yeah.
he yeah, he was a huge influence on me. The book he wrote on writing, I mean, that's a cliche to say that that had a huge
Yeah.
impact on you. But
I had that one too. It's on a little shelf right behind me here.
yeah, yeah, it's just the classic. I mean,
Yeah.
the biographical stuff is so fascinating. But I mean, like all those, he's got a lot of like good uh tips and stuff that I took a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff to heart when I was starting out.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so you've been writing for so long. I know from personal experience, like I know there was a period of time where, I was just like I really didn't really get into it until I would say around 2012, which was like, 20 I was in my 20s at that point. That I really started to try to do it. I was like, and I I was just finishing up law school. That was what it was. I was just finishing up law school, and I was like, I got to do, like, it's now or never. Like I was staring down
Yeah.
the barrel of a career that was like, I could, I felt like I could just keep going with this thing and just, that would be it for me in terms of my like no like my create like whatever creative outlet. If I didn't shit or get off the pot, then
Yeah.
if I didn't shit, I'd have to get off the pot. So I decided, okay, I'm really gonna push that. But like, there was years of shoveling absolute shit that,
Yeah.
and
Oh
so
man, I
what
cringe at some of the stuff I wrote. Like, whoo, so bad.
so was that like, when you got into it in earnest in 2017, was that how it was for you? Like, like was it, or were you doing that before then, and it was just kind of like you were just doing this more just every now and again you'd write a story or something like that? And like, how did that work for you?
Yeah, so like every once in a while, I just write for something to do. Like
Hmm.
just watch a movie and I'd be like, typing away. Um, it was kind of the same for me though. Like in 2017, I was 37. I mean, I realize that's not super old, and lots of people start out, doing things that they love at a later age. But I was like, this is gonna have to be now.
Mm,
If you're gonna do this seriously and you want to get, um, like I had no like major expectations or anything. It was something that I wanted to do for me. My youngest was nearly 2 at the time, and I guess she was, not as needy as a baby is. I mean, she still wanted to be
mhm.
around me all the time, but I had a bit more time for myself.
Yeah.
And there was a part of it that I wanted to be Nicole, and I didn't just want to be mom. Not saying just mom, but like I wanted something for me, like just myself. And because
Mhm.
writing was something that I'd always enjoyed and had always been a part of my life, I just went straight to it.
Nice. Yeah, I got there's a hard drive. I don't even know if it's still in my possession, but there's like one that's like just if I ever like I really like, that I have these like some these fantasies of like, okay, like I don't make it in this lifetime or something like that, and then like it's discovered after I'm dead, and then somebody fucking finds this hard drive and pulls out this garbage and like publishes a bunch of
Yeah.
this old crap. Yeah.
I hope nobody ever discovers the book of the poetry that I wrote in high school. Like, so bad.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
bad.
yeah. Well, that was like my before this. when I just like was like, okay, I got to do this, or it's never gonna happen. Like the only other times I really wrote were um for school. Like, like there was like the
Yeah.
teacher would be like, you got to do this or whatever. And it wasn't even like I did a creative writing class in university. It was like, you know, in English class. I remember it was grade 7. I had this like really bad Resident Evil rip off. Like it was like this, like it was straight up like totally that book that you just wrote the foreword for me for, like, that was
Yeah.
like I was like when I was writing that, I was like, "I gotta write a zombie book that's actually my own and not like some, I gotta do it." Speaking of that, you said you like horror. Is there any kind of, you know, um you said you like Stephen King. Is there like, is there any kind of like if you had to name your favorite horror story, what's your favorite horror story?
Oh my god, that's again, I'm gonna be like super cliched. If we're talking books, I'm gonna go with The Shining because it's classic. It's like even the movie is good, and like I'm one of those people. It's always like the book is better than the movie, but even the movie is good because I have to think of them as two separate entities though. Like there's the book, and then there's the movie. So I don't let them. I don't think about one while I'm I can't think
Yeah.
about the book while I'm watching the movie. But that is like I can remember like the first time I read it and stuff. Like it was always definitely high up there and one of my favorites.
This is like it's blasphemy, but I've actually never read The Shining. I've only seen the movie. I know Stephen King
Mhm.
the hated the movie, or like that's what I've read anyways, that he
Yeah.
wasn't a big fan of it. But apparently Doctor Sleep, he was more like, yeah, this is way more faithful.
I They changed something. I'm not gonna give any like spoilers or anything, but they changed something in the movie that kind of made me a little bit not happy.
Okay.
I like the movie, but again, I have to separate the two, right? So I have to think
Yeah.
about it as just a movie and just a book because I love the book and was super excited when I heard that the movie was coming out. And but they changed something about the ending. I am one of the I'm a terrible person to watch a movie with because if it's about a book, you're gonna hear me mumbling through the whole thing. I'm like, that didn't happen in the book. That's not what they did.
Oh,
And like generally I'm watching movies with my husband. So I have to be like, I'm sorry, but it's just not what happened. This is not
yeah.
so I know he's not gonna read it, so I'm gonna be like, he's gonna have to sit there then and listen to, my big rant about what was in the book that wasn't in the movie or vice versa. And I'm sure he's like never wants to watch another movie again with me that's based on a book.
Well, I'll tell you one Stephen King story that uh the they changed it for the movie. And I say they 150,000% changed it for the better. Did you see the 2007 The Mist?
I did. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
ending in The Mist, the movie, was way better than like that
Yeah.
was the one of the most like stab you in the guts type of thing
That
I've
was
ever seen.
bleak.
It was
It
so
was bleak.
brutal and so
Yeah.
like yeah, it was so good. It was so effective. Like I remember like after like I watched it and I first saw it, I was just like, oh my god, that's so fucking crazy.
Yeah, they did a good like some of them they've done good job with some of them are
Oh
oh
yeah.
god, what's that one? Oh, I can't remember the name of it now. It's so bad.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was
That's a Stephen
the
King movie?
yeah, it had I think it had Donnie Wahlberg in it, and he played like somebody who was like developmentally challenged or something. Oh, it was so bad, so bad. I read the book
Mm.
was good.
Okay, I'm trying to think
Maybe-
now. Yeah. I know Shawshank Redemption was just absolute classic movie.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think I read the story like there was a short story. I read a bunch of his short story collection. I feel like I read that one, but I can't remember. It's like Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. And yeah, and the Green Mile again. But those weren't really those were like supernatural, but they weren't horror.
Yeah, like he's
Or
come out with a few recently, like Fairy Tale and
I loved Fairy Tale. I
um
listened to the audiobook of that. So good.
oh, it was so good. And like there's
Yeah.
the new one. Have you read Mr. Mercedes, that series?
No, I haven't.
That's a good one.
That's more like a
The
slasher type of thing, isn't it?
there's also a show.
Yeah.
There's some parts of the book with Stephen King, so some parts of the book are going to be like super cringe. Like, "Ooh, I can't believe he just wrote that."
Yeah.
Not in a bad way. It's just in like just the like
This is messed up.
there's
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm the show really does not shy away from it. So some parts are very like you can't really look at the screen because ooh, yeah. So there's a fourth one coming out about one of the characters in that series, Holly. I
Okay.
love her. She's such a great character. And there's a, like the newest book that he has out is just about her. So I've got a hold on it at the library, but I'm gonna be waiting a while.
Oh,
I'm patient
nice.
though. I can wait.
Yeah.
I can.
Oh, that's awesome. Um, okay, and I wanna switch gears from the horror for a second 'cause, uh,
Sure.
you read some of my books, which are comedy, and it seems like you really had a good time reading some of them and laughing a lot.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so do you read much comedy like Hitchhiker's Guide or um any of Terry Pratchett? He's more like fantasy, but
I don't actually like comedy.
okay.
Even movies. I don't like comedy. It has to be like super good for me to enjoy it. I think I've just got like a weird sense of humor, and just some like comedies are geared more towards like I don't know. It has to be. I have this theory that even if a horror movie is bad, it's still kind of good. Like it's still
Yeah,
like you know. But if a
I
comedy
can subscribe
is
to that.
yeah, like if a comedy is bad, you've just sat through like an hour and a half and you got nothing out of it. Like if a horror is bad, you at least like, something happened. There was like a jump scare or something. But yeah, like I don't really read comedy. Yours, I do because I know it's going to be funny and I know it's going to make me laugh. But
Thank you.
it's not something I would go pick up, right? Like it's not now I have read a few. Vicky Murphy, Mother Fumbler was one that came out like says Newfoundland writer. Um,
Okay, I've heard
oh,
that name
that came
actually. Yeah.
out a nice while ago now. That is hilarious, but also is the same kind of humor.
Oh yeah.
I think yeah, I just like with toilet humor and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Like I feel like that's my thing,
Yeah.
and like that's like that I enjoy that, or like the sarcasm and the snark and stuff like that. Like I find that funny. I
Yeah.
think that's probably why I like that sort of stuff.
Well, I'll tell you one of the things I like when I first started writing, I wrote a few books that were more like fantasy, like the Yoga trilogy, which was like
Yeah.
there was some humor in there, but it was like the humor is super fucking like you said that you were reading Stephen King way before you should have. I was reading Irvin Welsh, who wrote Train Spotting, and like fucking
Yeah.
which is like blackly comic,
Oh yeah.
like yeah. And so, that's kind of like there was elements of that. But I remember, yeah, but I've always been like a big like I watch me and my siblings would always watch like comedy movies together. Me and my sister Amy particularly like would just like try to watch the funniest shit we could and like make each other laugh. And the but like the stuff that I like, a lot of it was like puerile fucking like stupid like toilet humor and
Yeah.
like just like just like like idiot stuff that was like lowest common denominator, make you laugh type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Stuff
like
that
lowbrow humor is my thing, man. Like that's my jam.
but I fucking would read stuff like Terry Pratchett and like Hitchhiker's Guide, and it was like there was an element of propriety that I just was like, I'm as a grown up, like I listen to fucking like Adam Sandler CDs and like fucking like Eddie Murphy, like really
Yeah.
my own my mom mom's family we used to go out to hang out with them. They're from mom's from Montreal, and so her family from the
Oh, okay.
mainland. We go out there during the summer when we were younger and hang out with her family, and they would like they dad would be like, "What did your brother and what did your idiot brothers teach teach him this time?" Because they'd be playing like the most filthy, Anyway, so we got warped pretty early.
Yeah.
But I noticed that like nobody was writing that kind of stuff until I
Yeah.
came across Fool by Christopher Moore, which is like basically like a riff on Shakespeare. But it's like King Lear, and so, anyways, it's just so fun. Like that was like it was almost like it gave me license to write this filth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but like that was it's one of these things where it's hard. Like I find myself with like I've read it gotten to a lot of comedy because I started writing it, and then like I'd be getting like become friends with like other comedy writers, and
Yeah.
like I'd say like, oh yeah, I'll check out your stuff, and but it's yeah, it's definitely a thing where if you're it's such a weird thing because like say you were like in a doing stand up or whatever, and like you got an immediate reaction from a crowd or whatever that are just
Yeah.
like the only fucking thing I've got is basically if I'm falling off the chair laughing as I'm writing it, I'm like, oh, hopefully somebody else will find this funny.
Oh, well, no lie. When I literally had to use my inhaler.
Oh yeah,
Like
that's
I was breathing and coughing and like tears were coming to my face. Everybody's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." Um,
yeah. Well,
yeah, it was
I was
just fun.
when I was reading Fool the first time I was on a plane to Mexico with my ex-wife, and like I just couldn't stop laughing, and she was getting embarrassed because like all these people were around in the
Yeah.
and I was there, couldn't stop laughing. She's like, "Oh, keep it down, keep it."
Yeah, I'm the one that causes the embarrassment because I'm usually the same. Once I start laughing at something, I get like I can't control myself. Like I keep thinking about it and then I
Yeah,
laugh more and then I like stop for a second and then I think about it again and then I start laughing again and it's like it's nonstop.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
the that would be me.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, so you're going to Mars and you're on the first mission to Mars, and
Okay.
you only get to take 3 books with you because there's not enough space on the capsule. What
Oh
would
my god.
those 3 books be?
Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. The Shining, Stephen King. And you know what? My oldest daughter had a short story published in a children's book. I'd take that one with me. I think that would be nice to have with me.
Oh, nice. That'd be great. Because well, I forgot to mention you wouldn't be able to come back, so this is it. This is it for reading material
Well,
for
then
your life.
that's even better.
There you go. See?
Take
Yeah,
something with me.
that's awesome. Okay. So you're 10 years, let's just pretend you're 10 years old again,
Oh,
and
okay.
you're dreaming about becoming a writer, and you've got all the experience of a 10-year-old. What advice would you give your 10-year-old self?
Um, like just go for it. Don't give up. A little aside here, when I was probably about 10, maybe 8 or 10, we had this man come to our house, and I guess he was like, you know, those things where you could have like savings for your kids to go to college or whatever. And he was
Mhm.
there to talk to my parents about that. And I remember he was wearing a suit and he was kind of like, well, he was old to me then. So I guess maybe he was like 50. I was small. And he leaned over and he said, "Well, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "I want to be a writer." And he laughed in my face. He literally laughed in my face.
That
Like,
MFR.
that's not a job. And I was like, oh, like poor little poor little me.
It
So
was like
I
50.
would definitely say to myself, like, don't listen to that old man. He has no idea what he's talking about.
He's a door to
Um,
door fucking kids fucking savings accounts salesman.
well,
Of course, he already fucking beat his dreams to death and
like,
fucking left it in a sack in the corner.
it made such an impression on me though. Like it was obviously it's like what like 30 odd years later. I'm still thinking about this guy, but now thinking about it a different way, I'm like, sucks to be him. Like, he's probably dead now, to be fair. But like, I wish there was some way I could like rub it into him, but like, there's no way he'd remember me. But like, yeah, I would definitely like, don't give up. Don't listen to like what the old men tell you.
Yeah, fair. I don't know what would possess someone to say some shit like that to a
I
kid, you know?
know. I would never say that. Like if my kids said they wanted to be Big Bird when they grow up, you're like, okay, let's make it work. Like
Yeah.
you know, it's a kid. I mean, you just go with it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. That's it, but, like, you hear so many stories like that. I never had anybody, um well, no, I can't say anyone really shit all over my dreams, but, like, there's always that element of, "Oh, you gotta be realistic," and, you gotta,
Yeah,
because like, there was a at points, there's, like, this element, at least maybe as younger. Now I've kind of, like, gotten past it, but there's, like, this idea of, like, turning your dream or your hobby into your, like, career, main source of income, all this kind of stuff, and, like, you get this,
yeah,
like, idea, like, that's very, it's a, you know, kind of like pie in the sky type of, like, idea that, you're not gonna have any kind of, like, pain or suffering, and, like,
yeah.
you know, and, like, it's like this thing is gonna save you or whatever. But but, like, that kind of, that's part of the, I think, the dreaming process, and,
Yeah,
it's important to have it,
absolutely.
and yeah.
Yeah.
But, I'm just, at this stage, I'm just happy that people are actually reading it, and, like, every time I get, like, somebody has, like, comments on it or, like, a review or, like, like, anyone listen out there who, there's a way that you can make an author, like, can make their day and, like, totally fill them with joy, and that's by, like,
Mhm.
writing a review, as long as you're not, like, excoriating them and fucking, like, this.
Yeah. Like don't be like, "This was terrible." Although I did get a review that was like, when I first started reading this, I thought, "This is weird." And I was like, "I don't know where this is going." And then they went on to say, "But I stuck with it and I enjoyed it." And I'm like, "Okay, it is a bit weird." So I'll give them that. But like, thank you for
Yeah.
sticking with it.
Yeah, I've gotten a few, what's the word for it? The backhanded compliment, or, things
Oh
like
yeah.
that. Like, yeah, yeah, you get them. I did, like, the worst review I ever got was, like, I got it out of the way early. Like, it was one of the first reviews I got from my very first book, and, like, you couldn't take a bigger shit on it, and it was so, like, I was just like, I remember reading it afterwards and thinking, like, you know must be cool living in that mind.
Yeah. Like I can't bring myself to like if I read something and I don't like it, which does happen. I mean, you're not going to love everything you read.
Hmm,
I just don't review it. I'm just like, nope, I'm
yep,
just quietly gonna just pretend that that didn't happen and go on with my life. But like, if I enjoyed it or like it made me laugh or, like it's as long as I enjoyed it and it held my attention and it didn't like, make me go, what is this? Then I'm gonna give a good review because that I enjoyed it. As long as I enjoy it, I'm happy with it.
yeah,
I can't I would not be able to just go and like completely crap all over somebody's like baby, basically. When you
I
pour your
know.
heart and soul into it, right? And then somebody comes along and says, "Well, this is garbage."
Yeah,
So
I mean,
mean.
I just, like, I don't, I feel like some people feel like they have, like, a duty to inform other people about, like,
Yeah.
and I also find that, like, I'll read stuff sometimes and be like, just like being like, I find, like, reviews are to some extent a reflection of, the person writing the review, obviously, because, there's a
Yeah.
give and take with with a reader and writer, like, you're putting words on paper, which is Stephen King called it, like, a form of telepathy, but it's, like, basically, like, you still got, like, somebody else's mind has to interpret it, and that's where, like, metaphor and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
comes through. But, like, it's funny how, like, I feel like, to some degree, you're almost like getting somebody's, like, life. You read enough of their reviews, and you're probably getting a little bit of their life philosophy, like, coming through as well. And I,
Yeah.
and I, yeah, it's one of these things where, like, I know what goes into it. I know the fucking blood, sweat, and freaking tears that go into the creation of, something, and yeah, I can't do it myself. But, like,
No.
I don't. I don't begrudge anybody their, like that guy who gave me the opinion, like gave me that terrible review. It's like, okay, like, like it was really mean, and it was probably unnecessarily mean. But like, okay, well, I asked you for an honest review, you gave it to me, so.
Well, yeah. Sometimes you get what you ask for, even if you don't want it.
Yeah, yeah. 100%. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Roxy Buckles. Uh, do you like is so for those who don't know, like it's kind of like it's got a very pulp sci-fi feel. It's very much like you got this heroine who's like super awesome. Like the first, like I think it was the first chapter, like it just like like, or the first couple chapters, she goes and hunts some bounty and like take like she just like is super kick ass. Like you get the first like the initial impression is like she's this like really awesome bounty hunter. And like she's just like hopping in the spaceship, and the spaceship's taking her to different planets, and she's just like yeah, kicking ass and taking names, and she's getting paid for it. And so I guess I'm wondering, like, do you have any kind of like, can you point to any kind of like influences, or like why where that character or where that idea came from? Do you have any kind of like insight into that?
It actually the character was first introduced in Pulp Science Fiction from the Rock, which is the anthology I forgot that I'm in with
Mhm.
Engine. That's an important one.
Oh, yeah.
So I wrote about Roxy and Suki and all like just those in general. And she shows up on Earth. I don't want to give too much away, but she's hunting something and ends up coming to Earth. And of course, because it's one of the From the Rock anthologies, it's PG-13, so you kind of got to keep it a little bit, clean. It was pretty like minor. There was no swearing or anything like that in it.
Okay.
But I like really loved the characters. It was just like I don't know, like I couldn't get them out of my mind, and I was like, I'd love to write more about this. Like I had this vision in my head of what these characters looked like, and I think I had some kind of weird girl crush on Roxy. Like I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and I was like, I can do this. I can write something longer. I'm like, I'll try it and see how it goes. And I took the fiction writing class with Matthew Ledrew of Engine. It was during COVID time, so we had to do it all online. And I worked on that novel. I had it partially written, but I worked on it throughout the entirety of the course. Got lots of great feedback from some really super awesome local authors and other Atlantic Canadian authors that were also in the class. Polished it up and just like submitted it and hoped for the best. Um, but yeah, like I don't know where this character came from. I came up with the name in the shower. Because I was
Awesome name.
like, I wanted to be something like I had Roxy. Like I had this name. It sounded like I don't know. In my head, it sounded like really badass or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
I had spent a lot of time in the house because again we couldn't go out anywhere. And then my one of my really good friends, Melissa, her mom's last name is Buckles. And I just thought that was like, I don't know, I've never heard it before. I thought it was such a great name. And I went, oh my God, Roxy Buckles is like the best name. So I was like, hey, I'm going to name my character after your mom. To be fair, her mom is kind of badass. And so is Melissa for that matter. So yeah, it sounded perfect. And then I was like, came up with this Sam Sparrow character. And yeah, it all just came together. There was no like, super major influence, I don't think, other than the fact that I'd been given this prompt that I had to write a pulp science fiction story. I like to challenge myself, and I don't like to pigeonhole myself into any one genre of writing. I'll try anything, like, I'll give it a go. Yeah, so I just wrote for that and then could not get those characters out of my head.
Nice. Yeah, I was just thinking. something I never mentioned in the reviews, but that there's a it almost like, do you remember Gem and the Holograms?
I do.
Yeah, very much a Gem and the Holograms type of vibe. Like that
It's that.
kick-ass feminine, yeah, yeah. Um, and the story was great. Like I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was one of these ones where it's kind of like it sets you up thinking one thing and then it kind of like flips it on its head, and then it's yeah, corruption and like fighting against corruption, and yeah, it was really good, highly recommended. um
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. So okay, so in terms of okay, here's one for you. You're given a button that makes one piece of your work disappear as if it had never been written. Can be anything you've written, doesn't have to be published or not.
Hmm.
What is it and why?
Hmm. Oh my, there's so much that I want to go away. Um, so I did when I was at Mon in, I think it was 2001. I did a creative writing class in poetry. If I could, like, I think I can't remember how many poems we wrote. Like, I had to submit like a portfolio and everything to even get into this class. So I guess it wasn't complete trash. But reading it now, I'm like, whoo, buddy, that's so bad. So if I could like get rid of like not the portfolio, like I guess that was okay since I got into the class. But some of the stuff that I wrote in the class, if we could just like get rid of that,
Yeah.
that would be great. I'm sure it's probably here somewhere, like on a hard drive or a flash drive or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Hopefully, I never come across it again.
Yeah, fingers crossed, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a line from The Lotus Fountain. Cassidy thought for sure that if Marcella had been wearing a string of pearls around her lying neck, she would have been clutching them, meme style. That's a line from The Lotus Fountain, one that I love so much I included in my review.
Yeah, when you said I've got a line for you, I went, yeah, I know what it's gonna be.
Well, it's just like it's so fun. It was so fun, and like I was just like, that's hilarious, and it was like just yeah, like awesome with like it just conveyed so much, and it was like very conversational and fun. Um, and so I guess like in terms of your writing style. I mean, I suppose it's like the stuff you read, but is there any like never noticed there's anybody's style that you like really try to like you think is great and you try to emulate, or like at least you can call it an influence?
So over the last probably, I guess maybe like 5 years or so, there's an Australian writer that I really like, Darcy Coates. She
Okay.
writes a lot of really great haunted house type horror. Since I started reading, I have to say that's been like a pretty big influence for the last little while. And that's probably what got me interested in writing things about haunted houses. Not to say that I didn't enjoy them beforehand, but it's been a great inspiration. I love the way she writes. I wouldn't say that I've necessarily emulated it, but it has changed the way that I guess, think about how it goes. Like, there's haunted house stuff is, it's got a way that it goes, and it's a ghost, and they're haunting the house and they're there for a reason, and somebody comes in and then they haunt them, like that sort of thing. Hers always has some kind of like twist, or
Mm,
like that sort of thing that kind of flips it on its head, and I really like the idea of that. So I think that's really what got me interested in writing like stuff about ghosts and haunted houses and things like that.
nice, nice. One of my favorite haunted. Well, I think it's like you talked about twists and haunted house stuff. Like I thought it was going to be a haunted house story, but then it turned out to be something much more interesting. Like you talk about like watching horror movies and always enjoying them. The Insidious series. It was Insidious.
Oh
That
yeah.
whole loved it. And that was like this thing where it's like, oh, it's like actually it's the kid that's haunted, or big
Yeah,
twist or
like some
whatever.
little, like, just little. like we've had some really great horror stuff come out over the last few years. Like I'm really enjoying the stuff that Mike Flanagan comes out with. Like the
I
Haunting
just
of Hill
watched it.
House,
Yeah.
Bly Manor, and now we've got the Follow the House of Usher, which I have not watched yet, but I'm
Oh, I
gonna.
just finished it yesterday.
Oh,
It's
don't tell
so
me no
good.
spoilers, no
It's so
spoilers.
I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's great. It's what I like about Flanagan is that um he has something to say. And I mean, like, horror generally is like, there's usually a moral element to horror, and it's like people,
Yeah,
they do evil shit, and then they get their comeuppance in some way, or and it's got like a myth against their morality plays in some way. And I thought that one definitely had that like front and center, which I think Poe generally did have that kind of idea
yeah.
running through a lot of his work too. But Midnight Mass, like that
Ooh,
miniseries is was so good, and it was like, I'm pretty heavy into like existential philosophy generally. When it comes to nonfiction, although in my younger days I would have said it was all fiction. The the that stuff, that series, just absolutely incredible. But Mike Flanagan, like anytime there's something new Mike Flanagan comes out, I'm like, woohoo! I
yeah,
can't wait to watch
same,
it.
same. Like super
Uh,
excited for this new one. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
really,
yeah,
I've really enjoyed the other ones. Yeah.
yeah. You're gonna love Fall of the House of Usher. It's good.
Yay.
It's so good. Um, okay, here's another left field one for you. If you had any magic power, what would it be and why?
Any magic power? Um, I guess I'd probably like to fly. That would be
It's
kind
a
of
good one.
cool. I'm afraid
Yeah,
of heights though, so I'm not sure how that works. But I feel like the sensation of just being free would be worth it. I guess. I have done skydiving before. Didn't really. I mean, I did enjoy the free fall part. So maybe as long as I can control the flying and I'm not just like like falling out of a plane, that I think that would be okay.
you did skydiving. That's crazy. I got bad fear of heights, and I like I've thought about it, like, eventually maybe one time trying it, but that's still.
I
And
also
I'll
have a fear of.
yeah,
I did
yeah,
it anyways. Tandem. I did tandem though. Like I was like strapped to somebody.
yeah, oh yeah, I could
For
never do it on my own. on,
I was
Not on the
shaking
first go.
so bad.
What's that?
And
You're
then
shaking.
you're up in this like rickety little plane thing, like a little like a little Cessna type thing, and it's so cold up there. And we'd been booked to jump from I think it was like 10,000 feet or something, and like get up there and there's too much cloud cover, and they're like, "Hey, you're jumping from 14." Okay, not like I have a choice now. I'm up here. I'm like strapped to a guy. Like, what am I gonna say? No, I will
Mm,
go back down with you. Thank you.
yeah,
And then you don't really get much of a choice. You gotta go. Like,
yeah.
but like the worst part of it is seeing other people go ahead of you because it just looks like they get sucked out of the plane. And it's like doing okay, so when you're watching a movie and somebody gets sucked out of a plane, that's what it looks like.
Oh my
So
god.
seeing like a bunch of people go ahead of me, it was like it just made it worse, and I was like shaking so bad. And then when you jump out, it's free fall. So like the wind is like it's like up your nose and to your mouth, and like the guy's like, open your eyes, open your eyes. I'm like, indeed I will not. I have paid good money to close my eyes. Um, once we like pulled the cord and stuff, and like the chute came out, and it was like nice, and you're kind of
Yeah,
gliding down. That was nice, but whew,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
never do it again. That was it. That's it. No
Yeah.
more.
It's
One
funny.
and done.
Yeah, you say that. I remember there was one. There was a Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. But
Ooh.
I love roller coasters. But like I go up on this one. It's like I remember my ex-wife was pregnant. We were at Canada's Wonderland. We were hanging out at the water park most of the day, and then we were like, you know, going to the. Or she didn't like roller coasters, and it was like, okay, I can drag her to just to one. And so I picked the biggest one in the park, and
As you do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I was like, okay, I'll do this one. And then like the whole thing, like I close my eyes and I'm just like, I open it like open it again right at the end and I'm there and I'm just like the adrenaline's so bad. I'm like jelly legs, like, trying to
Yep.
make my way across the bridge. But
I
yeah, I don't know why we do that to ourselves, but
know, I know.
that and horror movies, like, I mean, anyways. um, okay, so sci-fi. We talked a lot about horror, and the only thing I've read of yours is sci-fi. And I guess I'm wondering, um, what makes a good sci-fi story, in your opinion?
I think my favorite thing about science fiction is that you can pretty much write anything you want. Make up a whole language if you want to. Like make up a race of humanoid pets. I mean, you can do whatever you want. That's the
Mm,
thing. You want to have like some weird planet that has elephants. Like you can do whatever you want.
yeah.
And it doesn't the thing is it doesn't have to be like the stereotypical like science fiction stuff. Like, you know, you can make it whatever you want. It doesn't have to be, like it doesn't have to be aliens if you don't want it to be. Like it doesn't have to be, it doesn't even have to involve Earth, or it can be Earth. Like it's just such a broad range, and that's what I like about it. Just that was my thing when I was writing Roxy. I was like, I could just write whatever I want. Like the weirdest things I could come up with, I was like, yeah, that works. That's perfect. Like weirder the better, right?
Yeah,
Like that's what I like about it. You can just let your imagination go wild.
nice. Yeah. I find the same thing with fantasy. I mean, any of the speculative
Yeah.
fiction stuff. Yeah, and I also like that was one of the things about writing Heidi Ho and Factorino, which was like set in the real world, and like it's set in London. I haven't stepped foot on the island of England, and so like I'm here
Well, I
trying to
never
like
would have guessed. I
well, I'm
never would.
trying. Well, that's good. Like I don't. I want to know what a native Londoner would think of the stuff that I'm writing, because, like, I've got. I remember when I was doing this self-publishing course, Mark Dawson, who writes thrillers, and which is all set like very real world and all this stuff, and he'd have like these beta readers who would read his stuff and then like tell him where he fucked up in, like, I don't know, trigger discipline, like with like like stuff like that's like very esoteric and very like specialized, and like it's stuff from the real world. With fantasy, science fiction, speculative fiction, none of that shit matters. You can do
Yeah.
whatever you want. You can break the laws of physics, like whatever, as long as it's
Yeah,
kind
you
of
can
like
just write
internally
whatever you want.
consistent. Yeah, yeah.
I try really hard not to use dates or times or anything. So like I don't think there's no date. Like you would never be able to say that like Roxy Buckles took place in like 2047 or something. Like I don't use any dates. That way I can't,
Hmm.
can't mess it up.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you watch those old science fiction movies and they're like in 2004 or whatever, 2010, the
Yeah.
world's going to be like this. you know?
I'm like, nope.
No, exactly.
Where is my hover car?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Um, do. So you're part of Genre Writers of Atlantic Canada. How did you get involved in that group and what does it mean to you?
I think I think it was Matthew LeDrew that invited me to the group, or at least like put me onto it. And
Hmm.
I think it was around the time when Dystopia from the Rock was coming out. I think it was. So it's been a while. Um, Such a great group though. Everybody's always so supportive, and there's no bickering or no judgment or anything like that. Everybody's always so helpful and like really kind of, I guess, cheerleading everybody, like just getting everybody pumped up about what they're doing and stuff. I just really like how supportive it is.
That's one of the better parts of the internet. There's like, you can log on to
Oh yeah.
fucking Twitter or X and be like, this fucking the world is a fucking dump. And or you can
Yeah.
get onto like this, like a group like that where it's like,
Yeah.
like it's yeah, like lots of positivity, like people are good to each other. I think Peter's
Yeah.
a big part of that because he does some really good moderating, and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's really on top of it.
Yeah. Um, so I only got a couple more questions left, but you wrote a foreword for me recently for Heidi Ho and Factorino. Thank you again for doing that. That really
Oh, you're
made
very
my week.
welcome.
Yeah, this is really good. You mentioned that you love zombie fiction, and it's that time of year. And before we got on this call, I may have rewatched the 2004 Dawn of the Dead remake,
Yeah,
which is great. So, your favorite zombie movie, which one and why?
Shaun of the Dead.
Dawn of the
Shaun of
Dead.
the Dead, always, always. I've seen that movie, like, thousands of times, like,
Yeah, you're
I
talking
don't
about the
know what it's
remake, right?
about it, I just it's funny, and it's that's comedy that I like.
Yeah.
I love Simon Pegg too, but, like, that's, like, the pinnacle of movies for me. I don't
Oh, you're
know,
talking about
it's fun.
Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Shaun of the
Mm.
Dead, yes.
The Shaun of the Dead,
Also,
yeah.
like, Shaun of the Dead. Look, there's
Yeah.
not a zombie movie I haven't enjoyed.
Yeah.
I am obsessed with zombies, books, movies, shows. Like, if it's got a zombie in it, I'm gonna watch it. Yeah, super into zombies.
Did you, I'll tell you one that's so good, and it's been around forever, and I never knew, like, I knew about it, but I didn't know how good it was until a friend of mine during the pandemic told me about it. It is the Return of the Living Dead. It's like 1980 whatever, and so apparently what happened was, so the one of the, there've been lots of these zombie movies
Yeah,
throughout Hollywood history, but the big one that kind of was a bit of a game changer was Night of the Living Dead, George A. Romero's movie
yep,
from 1969. And I think it was like a producer or somebody involved in the production of that movie. um they they had a there was like some kind of agreement um that Romero, like, they wanted to do different movies, but they wanted to kind of like do like zombie movies. And Romero got
yep,
Of the Dead, so he got so after Night of the Living Dead, there was Dawn of the Dead, that won in the
yep,
'70s, and then there was like um the Day of the Dead, and the Land of the Dead, and then Diary of the Dead. Anyways, there's like these were like more modern, but this guy whose name is totally eludes me right now, but he did Return of the Living Dead, and it was like it was like, it's so like the openings. If you haven't seen it before.
I can't.
No, okay.
I probably have, but I can't think of it off the top of my head now.
Like, if you do watch it, and highly recommend you do, the opening sequence is probably the biggest laugh I've had, and just so what masterfully done. Like, there's like, until the credits, like the opening credits roll, like there's this long, it's like an extended thing. It's so fucking funny. Like, makes me really want to go watch it now after we get off here now.
Well, now I'm gonna have to watch it because I need to know what this is.
The movie itself is just, it's classic, hilarious, like pure '80s punk ridiculousness. Like,
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, yeah, it's good. Um, so okay, one more question for you, since we were talking about sci-fi earlier. Your friend of yours is a total sci-fi virgin. What do you recommend to them, and why?
Obviously, I'm gonna recommend my book.
Eh.
No, um,
Roxy
I
Buckles. That's it. And the question.
that's
And
it.
there's my
Nothing
answer.
else. Just that. I would definitely recommend local stuff because I find that I don't know, like Newfoundlanders who, or even like Atlantic Canadians who write science fiction. There's always like I don't know, maybe I'm biased because I'm from here or something, but it always seems kind of hopeful in a way.
Hmm.
Um, like even when I mean, stuff still seems pretty bleak, but I find sometimes there's always like this nice little thread of hopefulness. I think it's just deeply inbred into us because we're always hopeful it's going to be nice weather, and it never is. So we're always hoping for something better, and I feel like that just weaves its way into our writing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's definitely, yeah, there's definitely an element of that I've noticed. I mean, Peter's. but mine just went to Peter Foot and his
Yeah.
consensus trilogy, which is very, yeah, very much a hopeful type of thing. I mean, Peter's from
Yeah,
Nova
that's where my
Scotia.
mind was when I was thinking about it, because I know that it always has this, like, you know, it's got this underlying just like thread of like hopefulness. But
Hmm.
like whenever I recommend a new genre to somebody, I always tell them to start off slow.
Mm,
Short stories, always the way to go. It's the only way to find it. Like, you don't want to delve into some, like, 400, 500 page tome, right? What if you don't like it? Because I mean, not everybody's gonna like, you know, science fiction's not everybody's cup of tea. So I always tell people to start off with short stories, like read a short story collection, read a novella or something like that, just something small to, like, and dip your toe into the water kind of thing. And
yeah.
if you enjoy that, then move on to something bigger.
Yeah, and that's kind of like definitely like in my mind anyways, there's definitely an element of um like you can get like a military sci-fi space opera that's like you said like 6 or 700 pages, and
Yeah.
that's just the first book, and then there's like a ton more, and it's like like, and that's a certain kind of, like, I feel almost like there's like these all these subgenres within sci-fi because it's so broad, right? Like
Yeah.
you'd really have to know what somebody's into. Like, I could say to somebody who reads a lot of like Tom Clancy or something like that,
Yeah.
that maybe try out, I don't know, The Expanse, or
Yeah.
maybe or something, maybe some of the Warhammer 40K novels, or something like,
There's something for
that's
everyone. It's
yeah,
so broad. You're
yeah,
bound to find something you like.
yeah, 100%. 100%. Okay. Well, Nicole, it's about an hour there now, so I think we'll call it for now. But this has
Uh,
been such a pleasure.
I know
Um,
it's been fun.
yeah,
Once we
thank you
got
so.
things working.
Yeah, I know. After the technical difficulties,
Yeah.
honest to God, there has not been a podcast yet that hasn't required some kind of dicking around at the beginning because the software's not working
Oh,
properly.
I know. It's always, I can't, I've yet to do any sort of online anything like chat or class or like even final exams and stuff when I was learning online. Always something glitching.
Yeah,
Got there in the
100%.
end though.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. It was great. It's been great. So if anyone wants to find you, where should they go?
I am on Facebook. Just Nicole Little author. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm trying to remember now what my little at thing is. I can't remember. Maybe you look for Nicole Little, you'll find me. Even if you just do a search for Roxy Buckles, guarantee I will pop up. I am on, well, what used to be Twitter. I don't use it very often. I mostly just use it now for weather, but I
Hmm.
am there. I am there.
Okay.
And I've got like good reads and all that stuff. So I'm usually floating around somewhere.
Okay. And I will make the recommendation to start with Roxy Buckles if you're looking to
Awesome.
pick up Nicole's writing.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, thanks so much, Nicole.
No, thanks for having me. It's been a time.
All right. Awesome. Same.